All yours.
So there's a guy out there on the interstate right now filling up a big rig. He's hauling a load to Ohio or Missouri. He's buying 250 gallons of diesel. It's costing him, $1,000, $1,100. It's enough fuel to get him 1,000 miles, and then he'll have to do it again. $4 diesel, $5 diesel in parts of the West, and $4 gasoline has introduced a really intriguing dynamic into both the national and many Western races. The Republicans have this gift for coining phrases, and one of the ones they coined that is a really gifted phrase is drill here, drill now, pay less. And I've been intrigued. I mean, it's not clear to me whether blogging is typing, or blogging is journalism, or blogging is gossip, or blogging is reporting. But I've been intrigued by both in the blogging world and in the mainstream media. How few reporters have asked themselves, well, how much drilling are we actually doing? And are we doing more drilling today than we were doing last year or a decade ago? And so here are a few numbers. In the next week, in the next 7 days, we'll drill 1,000 new oil and gas wells in the United States. In the next month, we'll drill more than 4,000. This year, we'll drill more than 50,000. Half of all the oil and gas wells drilled anywhere in the world this year will be drilled in the United States. So the Republican slogan, drill here, drill now, pay less, implies that we're not drilling. And that if we simply did drill, we'd be paying less. What's the track record on paying less? A typical American family this year will pay $6,000 for fuels of all kinds. That's double what they were paying. This is for oil, electricity, and natural gas. That's double what they were paying when President Bush was first elected in 2000. So not only are we drilling like crazy, drilling here, there, everywhere, we're paying more. And so we have to ask ourselves, well, what's going on? If we are drilling at this frenetic pace, 3 out of 4 of oil and gas wells drilled anywhere in the world historically have been drilled in North America. Where is this drilling frenzy carrying us? And where is it not carrying us? Much of this drilling is happening in the Rocky Mountain West. We've drilled 100,000 wells here in the Rockies over the last 6 or 7 years. We'll drill 50,000 wells here in Colorado over the next decade, possibly more than that. In the region as a whole, by 2025, we'll have another 250,000 wells, or perhaps 300 to 400,000 wells in the region as a whole. And the reason is quite simple. There are only 10 American states that produce more energy than they use. 5 of them are here in the Rockies. The other 40 American states, from an energy perspective, are parasites on the states that have energy. Now, there's an interesting dynamic with natural gas in particular. If you think back to a cold winter night last winter, we were using about 80 billion cubic feet as a nation last winter. 1 dumpster's worth of natural gas per person each day in the U.S. Half of that natural gas is coming from wells that are less than 3 years old. In the next 3 years, we have to replace with new drilling more than half of the natural gas we were using last winter. And this is one reason we have seen such enormous pressure on Western landscapes. This is the only part of the country, until very recently, where gas production was actually increasing. Now, something very intriguing has happened over the last few months. T. Boone Pickens is going to speak here later on today. So you have this Republican billionaire traveling the country spending $60 million of his own money. This is an oil man who has concluded that we cannot drill our way out of this problem, that instead we ought to do what Greens have been promoting. We ought to plant wind turbines like they were trees. Pickens' plan is very similar to a plan developed by the U.S. Department of Energy to get 20% of U.S. electricity from the wind by 2030. So what would that take? In the next 24 hours, we're going to complete 150 oil and gas wells in the United States. To get 20% of U.S. electricity from the wind, we would have to build 20 wind turbines a day, and we would have to do that for the next couple of decades. So we're doing 150 oil and gas wells. Could we do 1/7 as many wind turbines each day as we're now doing oil and gas? And the answer is clearly yes. We could do that. Vestas has come here, the world's largest wind turbine manufacturer, has come here to Colorado just in the last few years. Just recently they announced they're going to open 2 more plants here. They will now have a total of 3. They'll be employing at full hire, they'll be employing about 2,500 Coloradans. And I think Vestas internally has concluded that not only are the Americans going to plant wind turbines like they were trees, they have no choice. They have to do that. This is where we've come now. I think for many different reasons, global oil production is peaking, global oil exports are trending down. We have to get real about energy in a way that we never have before. We're sending $1 billion overseas every day to buy imported oil. It's essentially an energy plan that has no future. It's becoming clear not only to Republican oilmen like Pickens, but to Republicans and Democrats in Congress that the path we have followed, which has emphasized lots of drilling, very cheap fuel, and almost as a consequence, a highly inefficient energy system, that path is essentially cannibalizing not only prosperity but the global climate. And so the next 20 years in the United States are going to be very fascinating, and they're going to be grounded in 2 realizations. One, that it's not energy per se that drives an economy. It's the conversion of energy into useful work. And that's the explanation for the Japanese miracle. And if we want to remain prosperous here in the United States, we're going to have to conserve energy and use it much more efficiently than we have in the past. Today, we're using 700,000 barrels a day less oil than we were using 12 months ago. This is the steepest downturn in vehicle miles traveled that we've had in the United States of America since World War II. This is a highly unusual moment in our history. I would argue it's the most severe energy crisis we've had in our lifetimes. And the political response to it, I think you can hear repeatedly in the Democratic speeches that we're hearing at the convention, the political response is still somewhat halting. The rhetoric is there, but the policies to underscore the rhetoric are not yet completely in place. The wind energy production tax credit and the solar energy production incentive, both of those are set to expire in about 6 months now. McCain has not showed up 8 times to cast the deciding, what would it be one of the deciding votes to extend those credits. Let me end there, and I think we have a few minutes maybe for questions.
We actually have no time for questions.